President Muhammadu Buhari recently signed the COVID-19 Health Protection Regulations, and he has the power to do this because of the Quarantine Act, the primary legislation governing suppression and prevention of deadly infectious diseases in Nigeria. According to documents, any person who contravenes the provisions of the regulations is punishable by a fine or 6 months in prison or both in accordance with Section 5 of the Quarantine Act. This week in the nation's capital, Wuse Market, UTC and Merg Shopping Mall were shut down for flouting the regulations. A promotion exam for the NSITF was stopped for overcrowding. How much enforcement can really be done? Well, my guest on the program is in charge of the Enforcement Task Force, and he tells me the arrests will continue and that these arrests seem to be working. Our feature story looks at the enforcement of the COVID-19 health protection regulations in the FCT. And in our Abuja wrap, the Inspector General of Police is to be in office for 3 more months. Former service chiefs are made non-career ambassadors. The Vice President celebrates 2 years after surviving a helicopter crash. And ECOWAS bows to the demands of President Muhammadu Buhari. This is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I'm Kayla Magwa. The COVID-19 health protection regulations have 6 parts: restrictions on gatherings, operation of public places, mandatory compliance with treatment protocols, offenses and penalties, enforcement and application, and interpretations and citation. The idea is to normalize the non-pharmaceutical guidelines, make it a part of who we are going forward. We'll get to that shortly, but first, let's take a look at this week in Nigeria's seat of power. President Muhammadu Buhari returned to Abuja after he completed a 4-day visit to his home state of Katsina. While in the state, he renewed his membership of the ruling All Progressives Congress in his hometown Daura, among other engagements. Upon arrival at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, he was received by government officials, including the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Malam Mohammed Bello, and the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Mohammed Adamu. Speaking of Mr. Adamu, the President extended his tenure as the Inspector General of Police by 3 months. The Minister of Police Affairs, Mr. Megari Dingyadi, told State House correspondents that the extension will give government ample time to select a competent successor.
Mr. President has decided that the present IGP, Mohammed Adamu, will continue to serve as the IG for the next 3 months to allow for a robust and efficient process of appointing a new IG.
Just about a week after accepting their resignations, President Muhammadu Buhari has appointed the immediate past Chief of Defense Staff, General Abayomi Olonishakin, former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukuru Buratai, former Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Ibokete Ibas, and the former Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Abubakar Siddiq, as non-career ambassadors. He has since forwarded their names to the Senate for approval. The President had a private meeting with the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila. After the meeting, the Speaker asked Nigerians to be fair in judging the ruling All Progressives Congress and not let mistakes made by the party overshadow the good work done by the party since it came into power.
I want us to be very objective. The party has done so much, but unfortunately, in life, that's just the way it is. If you do 100 good things, and one thing just is not quite right yet, particularly something maybe you met on ground, is not quite right yet, it has a tendency of muddying the waters and discrediting the 100 good things that you've done. And that's the situation we find ourselves. Well, we'll continue to encourage the public. We'll continue to educate the public on the things that APC has done. Now, APC never enjoyed really propagating itself. We thought our work would speak for us. But for me, I've since learned that you need to propagate yourself. Because a lot of the things, when I sit down with people, the biggest critics of government, and there will always be critics in any government, when I sit down with them and say, but you know what, the party did this, the party did this, the party did this, they're all in shock. They're all in shock.
Staying with politics, President Buhari had a virtual meeting with the youth wing of the ruling All Progressives Congress, where he assures them that there will be more party and government policies aimed at accommodating their interests. He promised to set up a committee made up of young people who will work specially for the interest of the youth.
Tell your colleagues to go back to their constituencies and join in party registration attend party meetings, pay your dues, make contributions, and bring your youthful energy and zeal to bear on the development of the party, right from the unit and ward level up to national. If you wanted to see something different, you have to be willing to do something different. While I'll be looking forward to a more robust engagement with young people across the country, I wish to emphasize to you with all that in me you have a major supporter. I will offer you my full support to grow in politics, public service, entertainment, entrepreneurship, and many other sectors, because I know that the future we envisage as a country cannot happen without our youth.
Speaking of developing young people, the Federal Executive Council has approved the establishment of 20 new private universities across the country, bringing the total number of private universities in Nigeria to 99. Speaking to State House correspondents after the weekly virtual Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by President Buhari, the Minister of Education says the 20 new private universities are to be given provisional licenses to run for 3 years, while the ministry monitors and evaluates their growth. 2 years after the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and 11 others survived a helicopter crash in Kaba, Kogi State, the Vice President is still expressing his heartfelt gratitude to God for sparing their lives and keeping him alive to celebrate what would have been the second anniversary of his death. The Vice President was speaking to State House correspondents after representing President Buhari at the virtual extraordinary session of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the Economic Community of West African States.
This would have been the second anniversary of my passing on, but as God ordained it, it's actually the second anniversary of Thanksgiving and victory. So all one can say is I just thank the Almighty God for preserving my life and the life of 11 others who are with me, including Mr. Laulu Akode, my ADC, the SO, former minister, and so many of us whose lives would have been lost. So this would have been a very, remembrance of possibly the death of 12 of us. But God has really done an awesome thing by preserving our lives to see 2 years after that. So we can only thank God.
The chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Mr. Boss Mustafa, is promising to establish a COVID-19 PCR testing center at the recently launched State House Clinic Special Care Center. Launching the center in Abuja, Mr. Mustafa states that the weekly testing of State House staff will be more convenient and confidential if a PCR center is set up at the State House Clinic.
I can give you my word that we will put a laboratory for the testing or a PCR facility in this facility, because this is supposed to be our priority. Very soon, you cannot travel the globe if you are not vaccinated. And we are not new to it. Years ago, you couldn't go into Europe, particularly UK, if you do not produce your yellow card.
Welcome back. Following the signing of that executive order by President Muhammadu Buhari, the task force has hit the ground running, arresting defaulters of the regulations and charging them to court. You truly do not want to be caught on the wrong side of the law on this matter, like the people in our feature story. Look, it's a permanent stain on your record that you were convicted of a crime and affects how you're perceived if it ever comes up in the future. But don't take my word for it. Watch this. This meeting is at the instance of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, following the signing of the Coronavirus Disease Health Protection Regulation by President Muhammadu Buhari. The idea is for the Presidential Task Force to meet with stakeholders at subnationals to drive home the government's determination to implement the regulations. Chaired by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, the stakeholders at the meeting include political, traditional and religious leaders, as well as heads of the various security agencies in the FCT. The FCT Ministerial Task Force on Enforcement of COVID-19 is charged with the responsibility of ensuring compliance to the regulations in the nation's capital. Their task includes the arrest of violators of the health regulations. During an exercise in some of the public places, the task force arrested at least 115 persons for failing to wear face masks. They were subsequently arraigned before a mobile court and fined accordingly. The FCT administration is strengthening the use of the mobile court system for trial of violators of the regulations. The court also gave an order shutting down the popular Wuse Market, as well as the UTC Market and the Merck Plaza, both in Garki Area 7. The following day, these traders in Wuse Market are here for their daily business activities, but they met the market locked, manned by security agents from the FCT COVID-19 enforcement team. Nobody is allowed into the premises. Even items that are meant to be offloaded for the day's sale remain in the vehicles. Some traders hang around the market, hoping for some relief, especially because of the perishable items in their shops.
We that sell perishable goods, we don't have access of going to carry our goods now. Because if we leave it inside the market for 2 days, that thing will spoil. You know, say the market, life is there inside, chicken there inside, that in tomato fruit there inside. You know, say all down, if you not open the market, all down will spoil.
The situation did not stop some from making brisk business. After all, it is a market, whether inside or outside the premises. Yet, the violations continue as people gather in clusters and some arrests were made by the officials.
When coming into this market, you see a lot of boys, a lot of people hanging around. They are close to each other. A lot of people are not wearing the masks, and there is no social distance. You can see a customer moving, and you see like up to 15, 20 boys following one person.
Anybody that violates, they should get the person arrested and let the person pay for his thing. If you come to my shop, I have the bucket of water, I have sanitizer, I have the soap. You understand? So they should not use one person's thing to punish others.
In another part of town, the court order is clear as the UTC Market is closed, as well as the Merck shopping plazas, for violating the presidential regulations on COVID-19. Nevertheless, the leadership of the affected businesses are making efforts to revive the old practice of ensuring compliance with the COVID-19 safety protocols. The task force returns to the mobile court to pray the magistrate, Mrs. Hidayat Akoni, to reopen the business premises in view of the latest compliance level by the traders and the operators. The judge fines officials of the Wuse Market, UTC Complex and the Merck shopping malls 50,000 naira each for violating the COVID-19 protocols, and they promise to adhere to the safety protocols going forward.
We wrote an undertaking to comply with the COVID-19 protocol. And we believe with what we have just done, we'll make sure that we educate our people.
The markets and shopping malls are unsealed by the officials amidst jubilations by the traders. Meanwhile, the task force, acting on a tip-off, stormed this event center in Area 11, where the Nigeria Social Investment Trust Fund is conducting a promotion examination for their staff. Some staff of the NSITF had informed the task force that the management fund had sandwiched over 1,000 of them into a hall that should ordinarily take 500 persons, in total disregard for the COVID-19 protocol on social distancing. While some of the staff fled the scene, abandoning their cars which were towed away, some others resisted the order to vacate the premises. However, after 2 hours, they complied. The task force is insisting that the owners of the event center would also be invited to explain why an event of such magnitude would hold without adherence to the COVID-19 safety protocols. The sanction on these facilities is expected to serve as a deterrent to others who violate the presidential COVID-19 regulations. My guest on the program is Mr. Enforcement himself, Mr. Atta Ikaro, the head of Media and Enlightenment, FCT Task Force on the Enforcement of COVID-19 Protocols. Not too long ago, we had talked on this program about the president signing these regulations and how much work the task force will have to do trying to ensure compliance. He sounded ready then and has no intention of slowing down anytime soon. Carol, welcome to Dateline again.
Thank you very much, Akila. Nice time being with you again.
Last time we spoke, we were talking about what's happening right now. We're talking about, the enforcement bit.
Good.
And you've had a very busy week, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Many people didn't expect it to be so hard, and I hear it's going to get harder from your office. But before we get to that, let's talk about this executive order that has been signed by the president, which is the reason why you're doing what you're doing.
Correct. I think by the Quarantine Act, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, in moments of epidemic like this, should sign a Quarantine Act, should sign an executive order that will guide the people, that will guide conduct, that will help us as enforcement officers, that will help those in the health profession on how best we could tackle this particular epidemic in question here. And that's what President Muhammadu Buhari did as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, signing the executive order, which I think for now is really giving us teeth, very strong teeth to bite.
And you have bitten really hard this week, the NSITF promotion exam. This was the promotion exam of what's going to happen to them, first of all?
No, they will write the exam.
Okay. But what rules do they have to obey
this time around? We're going to guide them, like what the Labour Minister, Dr. Chris Wambui raised. We are going to work very closely with them. We're going to guide them. We're going to ensure that we get a very big place where they can stay within their office. They will get that. We'll check them here, and there will be enough space that there will be enough space, and they won't have so much crowd. Then we can have it. We can have it staggered in a way that we can have a first, second, and third, and fourth.
Because it was pretty disappointing to see that from a government agency. If a government agency is not able to observe social distancing and things that are doing a promotion exam, what do we expect the private sector to do?
I think that's the reason why we are coming into it. That's why we are going for government establishments very strongly here. If you look at the Worcester market, it's owned by the FCT admission, by the same government under which we work. The UTC market is owned by the same government under which we work here. And we believe it's appropriate for us to actually go under the concept that charity begins at home. You cannot go out talking to people when you find contraventions in marketplaces that belongs to government, in areas that belongs to government. So if government can talk to government and government can sanction and deal with government, then those persons who are out there will know that it's not business as usual. If it is those days, government exams, government market, not no-go area. But for the FCT Minister, Amala Mohammed Musa Bello, and the Police Commissioner, those are areas that we should focus attention on. If we touch government, like what happened this week now, everyone felt, hey guys, you went to Worcester Market that is government owned. You went to this, what do you call it now, NSITF exam center that is government exam center. You went to UTC that is government owned. So everyone had to sit up, because if government can talk to government and sanction government and get government to do what is right here, then government will not spare anybody.
You have received a lot of kudos for that particular...
And attacks.
Well, you have gotten some attacks, but lots of kudos, really. Especially seeing as, like you said, you're looking at government agencies. It's sending a very strong message to the private sector. If the government can be brought to book by the government, then maybe you should be a little bit more careful. But let's talk more about this enforcement.
Yeah.
Earlier, when the pandemic hit, I think one of the ways people were trying to, should I say, I don't want to say discredit the work you were doing, but maybe, put some, maybe force your office to think outside the box, was the concept of arresting people and trying them in mobile courts. And I think at the time people were trying to find out from you exactly how many people can you arrest. You know, how many people are you going to try? Are you going to arrest the whole of Abuja? How do you feel about that right now, seeing as you're making more and more arrests every day?
I think us as enforcement officers under the police commissioner for the FCT, Mr. Bala Chiroma, is to ensure that we enforce compliance. President Muhammadu Buhari signed an executive order, and it is in our own duties, in our own assignment schedule to ensure we enforce it. So we go out every day, we ensure that we talk to people, we ensure we arrest defaulters, and we ensure they stand before justice. And many will ask, how many will you arrest? And when they saw on Monday that about 100, about 125 to 130, we are arraigned in court, they start to ask the question, these guys are serious. We must be very serious. If you look around Abuja now, everyone got a mask. Everyone got a mask. Even in Maraba, someone went to Maraba, you could see masks. And someone had a conversation that was uploaded on social media when somebody in Maraba is saying, I won't remove my mask because if I don't master it in Maraba, I may mistakenly enter AYA without it and they will pick me up. So everyone is just conscious about it. And I think the enforcement will, it sounds difficult, Kela. It's very difficult. Sometimes it's very worrisome, but you will keep doing it. It's your job. You must do it.
You know, when that question, when it comes up about how many people you're going to arrest, I think what people are trying to say is, are you going to social distance them in jail, and things like that?
I think, Kela, for us, I keep referring you to channels and those who watch channels television, very large in their billions across the world here. The reporter will not ask you, how many news will I cover? As far as you're concerned, channel have made you a reporter. Go and cover all the news you can cover. Bring them and let your editor decide what he will do with the news. So you go out as enforcement officer. What's what we'll do? We arrest as many as we found defaulting, and we bring them before the prosecuting counsel, who will now handle them over to the judge. Ours is to go out and arrest as much as we can arrest. We can't arrest everybody. We can't arrest all defaulters, but within the time and the day we are going out, we get as many defaulters as we can get. We pray not to get any, but as many as we get, we'll bring them before justice.
Is it working? Are people adhering to the non-pharmaceutical guidelines?
Everywhere. Everywhere. Let's go to AYA now. You find everyone with a mask. Sadly, some of them will put it around their jaw, some will hang it here, and one or two will be dangling it as if it's the car key. But you find face masks everywhere. The face mask vendors are almost everywhere, in the mosques, in the churches, the car parks, everywhere you go to, you see face masks just everywhere, in the markets, everywhere. Everyone is just very conscious that, look, it's no longer business as usual. So I think for me, it's largely working. Look at around the city this week. Everyone is working very, very hard.
So what's going to happen going forward? Before I get to that, people have been calling for you to go to the National Identity Number Registration Offices.
Centers.
Yes, the centers around the city, which of course everyone has really been reporting. We've been there every single day reporting how overcrowded those offices are, especially with the deadline. They've extended the deadline again, but people still keep, the place is still filled with so many people. There's so many people who still need national identification numbers. And, are you going to take your team to the NIN offices to ensure that the crowds are reduced or that there's social distancing? Do you have a plan for that office?
When the masquerade leaves its dancing and dressing place, everyone knows that the masquerade must get to the dancing arena and the market square. That's the truth.
Is that a yes?
An affirmative yes. We are going to come there. Sometime we felt we would have been to NIM Center a lot earlier to ensure we enforce compliance, but we had too much on our hands. To be very candid, the Wuse market closure, the UTC market was really very heavy. The Mokla was very heavy. We thought we could even finish that. We got to deal with the issue of the NSITF issue. It's so heavy on our hands. We are going to go to the NIM Center. And when we get to the NIM Center, somebody will tell us, no, there's one other place somewhere. We will keep going to everywhere. And I'm telling you, when rain starts to fall in the neighboring village, as long as it is rainy season, it will get to your village. We are coming there.
We'll be back in a few weeks or months with you to see if compliance levels are higher, if this strict enforcement has worked.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you very much. Wonderful time being with you, Kela. Very nice moment.
Thank you. Whether you believe in COVID-19 or not, the law is the law and should not be broken. When in public, wear a mask. social distance, and sanitize regularly. It's really that simple. Normalize it, make it a part of who you are, and go about your business. That is this week on Dateline Abuja. Remember, you can talk to us using the social media handles showing right now on your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kayla Megwa. See you next time.